You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Analese.
And this is Rob, and we are your nerd best friends.
This season, we're geeking out over Dollhouse, the 2-season cult classic starring the incredible Eliza Dushku. Get ready for a deep dive into all the twists, turns, and mind-wiping fun.
Nerd best friends, grab your devices, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, and share this episode with your fellow geeks. Let's grow this nerd community together. Every click helps us reach more of you out there. So, what are you waiting for? Join the movement.
This is episode 62, and we are nerding out over Dollhouse. How's it going, Rob?
It's going real good. I'm just happy as could be. I had forgotten a lot about this show, especially the end, but I'm glad we watched it again.
I agree with you. And right now we're mid-December. We're heading towards winter break. What a great time to remind our listeners about this great show. And maybe during winter break, you take some time and go watch it. Or rewatch.
Maybe. I think it's, it's for a specific kind of listener. It's not for everyone, but we'll get into it.
We'll get into Dollhouse in just a few minutes, but first let's get to our nerd mail.
Nerd mail.
In our mailbag this week is a link from one of our listeners about Eliza Dushku. Our listener heard that we were going to rewatch Dollhouse, and this article happened to pop up, and what she's been doing in the last decade since she stopped doing things in Hollywood, and it's really interesting. It's actually a little dollhousey, if you will. The basic part of the article is that she's gone back to school, completed some degrees in therapy, particularly psychotherapy, particularly using psychedelics as a form of therapy.
I've totally heard of this.
Yes. So the article talks about how she used it to go over or to go through some abuse she had encountered when she was 12, and she was in Hollywood from a young age. So somewhere around the time of one of her Hollywood things, it helped her so much that she became a therapist and is now working with a group of people that do the psychedelic. They take mushrooms and work through their traumas. And it's really interesting work that she's doing in a really interesting article.
I totally agree. Hollywood's a mess. Y'all, it's real rough out there. Cutting edge psychology. I wish intern Joan was here. I bet she knows so much about this.
Intern Joan to talk to us about. Maybe we'll get her for the bonus episode.
But these substances, when controlled and under the care of a doctor who's guiding you through these things, I've just been hearing more and more about how this is becoming the norm and how we're really unlocking things much quicker and helping people. It's almost like a cheat code from what I understand. You do it this way and it's like, oh, what would have taken 3 years only took 1 now.
And it has to do with the brain, right? And that's the whole kind of full circle thing about it with Dollhouse. It's all about how the brain works. And granted, it's not that. This psychedelic psychotherapy is not wiping people's brains. It's actually helping unlock memories that in fight or flight mode, the brain just automatically pushes aside. Yeah, it's real interesting. I would really love to hear Dr. Jones' take on this.
Yes, the brain is wild. The more we learn about the brain and its plasticity and just the way that it interprets things, when you could go down these rabbit holes. Like I had this whole crisis of conscience the other day, thinking about interpretation and how the brain works and how you can prepare your own brain for things, because we live in this weird reality where nothing's real. I mean, something's real, but we're all seeing it differently based on the state of our mind. And I was at a talk and the guy was talking about, you put 2 people at the bottom of a hill and it's the exact same hill. And you ask one person, hey, how steep is that hill? How long do you think it's going to take? And they'll be like, oh, I think it's pretty steep. And I think it's going to take me half an hour. And then you put that same person next to another person and say, hey, you and this person have to climb this hill. What do you think? And they'll be like, oh, it looks like it's probably not too steep. It'll take me 15 minutes. And it's it's the same hill.
Yeah.
But because of the state your mind is in, you're interpreting it differently. So everything we're seeing and that we're observing is all always through the lens of the state of mind that you're in. And the person who's like you and I could look at two different things and we're seeing it in a way completely differently. Because what is reality, man?
Well, our brains are 100% built to survive. We're actually in survival mode all the time. It's telling our body to breathe and take in oxygen. It's telling the blood to flow. It's saying, hey, this part doesn't feel so good. I'm going to send some resources that way. Like, it is in survival
some of
mode
us
all of the
who
time.
are a little anxious definitely got that amygdala going.
Oh, for sure. And well, and that turns from survival into fight or flight. That's where some people's brains work differently. In your example, there's clearly a mountain or a hill. It clearly is or isn't climbable. But yeah, our perceptions are going to change based on whatever survival mode we're in the minute. That answer changes in your example because maybe the person's next to someone they want to impress or don't want to look weak in front of. So the brain automatically makes that answer different. It's pretty phenomenal. But to be using it to be using psychedelic drugs in a way that is careful and thoughtful and mindful to help people unlock traumas and figure out why their brain goes to those places is pretty interesting, and it's pretty powerful. It's also pretty scary because some people their brains can react poorly to the psychedelic drugs.
I think you got to have a lot of trust in your doctor, and you probably got to have a lot of trust that you're going to be okay. Or you have to have you have to be going through something pretty rough to be like, okay, I'll try anything. And anything in this case is like, we're going to blast your brain with LSD.
That's also very true.
The other thing that's very true is like, could Eliza Dushku be any more impressive as far as being just drop dead gorgeous, a phenomenal actor in great shape? Like, she can fight, she does martial arts, and now she's a doctor.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, her whole trajectory and her path. I'm sad that we will never see her talents in entertainment again. That's my brain.
Makes sense.
A selfish answer. But also, she's been in it since she was a child. She clearly went through some stuff. Part of that article links to another one. We've heard that Joss Whedon's sets were toxic, so we don't know what version of Joss that she got.
Mm-hmm.
She also filed harassment against...
She was the voice of She-Hulk in a bunch of cartoons my kid watched.
There you go. She did a show called Bull. And
haven't heard of it.
And it was a really popular show. She had this 4-year contract with them. She had a really prominent character in the show, and it was really popular. And she left it early, and then she ended up getting a payout of the rest of the contract because of sexual harassment from her co-star. That alone, she's been through a lot. No, her IMDb is impressive, and she did a lot of stuff while she was in Hollywood. I'm super happy for her and her journey. But let's go to the Talk Nerdy to Me. We have a question for our Talk Nerdy to Me segment, Rob. So Talk Nerdy to Me. What cheesy old television show needs a dark, gritty, modern reboot?
I have two answers. I'm going to go with the fun one first, and then I'll be a pill after that. Accepting the premise of the question, which we need dark, gritty reboots, in staying with the theme of the episode, my choice is Small Wonder.
Oh,
Small Wonder was a show in the 80s about a little robot girl who was like the robot daughter and the robot sister. I think the dad built it as a hobby in the basement, whatever. But this is 2025. Now it's an AI sex bot, and it's been welcomed into the family, but it's terrible. And there's all this weird innuendo, and nobody's a hero. And there's all this weird moral ambiguity about it. It's awful.
That sounds a little bit like Dollhouse.
It's basically Dollhouse, but now
robot,
it's Small Wonder, and it's even worse because it's in the family situation.
That's a good call, because if you remember, the idea of using a sex bot, we could do without that part, but the whole premise
that's
of that
how you
show...
sell it to the marketers, because just like Dollhouse, it just exists so you can put this person in the sexiest costume possible week after week.
Wow. It depends on what network, I guess. But if you remember, the premise of that show is that the guy is a frustrated scientist because no one will listen to his ideas. So he builds a robot in secret to prove that he can. And he's trying to make it so that he can show his bosses, look, this is actually possible.
That they can corner the AI sex bot market.
Well, that would be the new version, right? The new version is he's so frustrated, but he's also a little bit mad. So he puts a bunch of things into that robot that make it murderous. And yeah, you could go a lot of places with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you make the music like spooky with, the Black Keys on the piano, but it's the same theme song. And then every time you hear that, the robot kind of looks off into the distance a little bit. And you're like, wait, is it going to murder everybody?
Has it? Oh, the neighbor's cat got murdered?
And that's how it begins. Just like a psychopathic child that starts torturing animals in the neighborhood.
Oh, that would
and
be
it's like, just a little glitch. I'll adjust to the neural network or whatever.
Well, no, the whole time they don't even know it's her, right? Like, oh, the neighbor's dog disappeared. Oh, the neighbor did.
Oh, and the dad's always making excuses.
Yeah.
Because he can't have it be
she
bad.
Was plugged in all night. She was charging. They have no idea. We know who it is with the little glint of the robot eye.
But everybody's lying because they're all using it for a sex bot. It's gross.
You keep going to sex bot. I think you got your old man hat on right now.
No, what are you talking about? You said gritty reboot.
But that doesn't have to mean sex bot, bro.
It's gritty and gross.
I mean, gross is definitely a word. You want to hear mine?
Yes.
Look, I would have totally picked Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I totally would have picked that, but it's already been done. So yeah. I'll go with Friends because
but it's gritty and they're actually trying to survive in New York.
Yes, let's have it be a bit more realistic. It's gritty and they're broke and they don't have this gigantic, beautiful apartment to live in, and they don't live in Manhattan above a beautiful, safe coffee house. Like it could definitely be gritty survival New York. I think that musical is called Rent, but that's a different story.
There you go. Or The Real World.
Yeah.
We're back in the 90s.
That's like season 1.
My second answer is we don't need any more gritty reboots of anything. These are terrible. Did you know? Okay, remember Matlock with Andy Griffith? Did you know that Matlock is like a lesbian woman now in the gritty reboot on
Kathy
CBS?
Bates. You better not speak ill of Kathy Bates. I will come across this screen and I will smack you silly. I love Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates as a sarcastic, strong of a woman, like every day for the rest of my life.
Why does she have to be named Matlock? Why does it have to be Matlock?
It didn't have to be, but that's Hollywood, right? They are rebooting instead of creating something new.
I think it's specifically network television. And I feel like I've gotten a ton of exposure to this stuff since I started watching football more, because it's all about like advertising whatever network television show. It's all the same shows that we remember. They rebooted Quantum Leap. They rebooted Hawaii Five-0. They rebooted Matlock. They rebooted MacGyver. Every property they have is on its like third. This time it's all up to date and their cell phones. It's wild.
The only thing I can think, I do have some friends in the industry. I should ask this question of them or have them on the show to ask. I only imagine, because we talk about this with Marvel and Spider-Man and DC, right? They have to keep making, the contracts are so that they have to keep making something to keep those properties, right? It's the only thing I can think, that it's cheaper to reboot a show that they already own than it is to purchase from someone a new idea, a new show, a new thought.
That's gotta be it. And because they're in like whatever those prime time weekday spots are, they know they can sell a certain amount of ads to advertisers or whatever. But like, I don't know anyone who's watching these shows. And like, well, sorry, network television, you're dying like the newspaper. But like, when I talk to people about what they're watching, it's always things on Netflix, Apple Plus, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime Video. Like all of these original shows that people love are on these streaming services where they're, I don't know, they have a little bit bigger budget, or they're willing to take more risks or something, willing to step outside the like 7.5 minutes of show and then cliffhanger for a commercial, and 7.5 minutes of show and cliffhanger for a commercial. Like just taking a little bit more risk. Like that's where the good entertainment is. So these gritty reboots are garbage.
And I think, well, okay, so I have two thoughts to that. I agree with you. Although I love Kathy Bates. I will watch it just because it's Kathy Bates, but I'm not going to watch it live. I'm going to wait till it's streaming and I don't have to watch commercials, right?
I dare you. There's no way you're going to be able to get through a whole season of Matlock.
Probably not. I'm not saying it. I'm not purporting that it's a good show, but I'm a big fan of Kathy Bates. I will watch a few episodes, and if I like it, I'll keep watching it. However, I had two thoughts. The first is the streaming networks have an advantage, and they have an advantage because of the way they do their contracts. And I think we've talked about this in an episode before, but the short version is they pay cheaper on the front end. And if the show is popular, then they really have to pay out season 3. And that's why you get so few of these shows going to season 3, even if they're popular, because it goes from pennies on the dollar to millions of dollars. That's what's happened with Stranger Things, right? Those kids are rich as heck because they got to season 5. The first 2 seasons, they got paid pennies to do what they do. And so the streaming services, the way they build their contracts, make it so that they can keep making this fresh new stuff because it's cheaper. So if you follow the money, it's cheaper for the streaming services to do the new shows. That's why there's so much goop that only goes a season or 2.
I don't mind that, especially if they know, and like if you tell your story and get out, I'm fine with it because I'm there for the entertainment. I'm there for the story. Now, we'll talk about this a little bit later in Dollhouse because, oh boy, did it turn on a dime so they could finish this story. Also, I will say, because it was one of the first, the dark, gritty reboot of Battlestar Galactica is one of my favorite shows ever made, so I can't really get it too hard.
Yeah, I mean, Buffy is a remake as well, right? It was made as a movie. It was campy. It wasn't good. Joss made it to the gritty, dark TV show that we all know and love. The second point I wanted to make real quick is think about Matlock when we were growing up. Who were the people watching Matlock? Like
it was the grandma show. It was the show. Exactly. I've watched so many episodes of Matlock because it was on at my grandma's house.
Exactly. And it's like Murder, She Wrote, which they also did a gritty reboot.
Also a grandma show.
Who are the people that still have cable television?
Them boomers.
Our grandmas. Right? So they're like, oh, look, I love Kathy Bates. She was on the Titanic movie. And then, all of our Southern grandmothers.
That's right.
So it also makes sense to the audience that they are catering to, the cable network television shows.
Is there just tangent? When you were a kid, was Nick at Night on at your house for like old shows all the time? I feel like that's a millennial thing.
I will say I remember having Nick at Night on like in college and there was nothing else on and we had been out at a party or whatever or like football games, which are like 12, 16-hour days. Sure. One of the things my roommates and I like to do is we'd get home and we're just grungy from being in the band uniform all day and sweating all day. We'd take turns in the shower and the first person who showers had to go down the street to Chano's and get everybody's food. And we'd put Nick at Night on and we would slop food from the stand shack at the corner of the street and just watch Nick at Night. So yeah, I do think it was more of a millennial thing because we watched a lot of that stuff kind of live.
There was no streaming. There was no internet TV. So it was like, what do you turn on? Oh, something safe you don't have to pay attention to. Nick at Night is going to show you the Mary Tyler Moore Show and WKRP in Cincinnati and like all that kind of stuff. Like they don't have that anymore, do they?
Maybe it does, but you know what they show now?
No.
Friends.
Really?
Think about it.
Because that's what I was wondering. Is it like more color stuff now? Is it Matlock and Murder, She Wrote and those kinds of things? I don't know. I don't even know if something like that exists.
And it's like Seinfeld and it's like...
Oh, Seinfeld. I think there's like a Seinfeld channel. Like it's on all the time.
That might be. They're raking in their syndication dollars for sure. But I don't know if it's called Nick at Night anymore, but they're definitely those syndication stations that show nothing but... There's one that shows nothing but Friends pretty much all the time. And but you got to think about it, right? If Marty goes back into the future now, it's 2024. It would be 1994.
Right.
If we were watching Black and White,
it's always like that 30-year jump. Interesting. Wild. I don't remember why I brought that up.
It was a lovely tangent. We can move on. So nerds, send in your deep thoughts, nerd questions, or talk nerdy to me subjects that you'd like us to cover by sliding into our DMs or send those topics to podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Now let's talk about Dollhouse.
Let's. Today we're diving into the show Dollhouse, a thought-provoking sci-fi series created by Joss Whedon. The show originally aired from 2009 to 2010 on Fox and became a cult favorite among nerds for its mind-bending concept and ethical dilemmas. Dollhouse explores a world where human actives have their memories erased and are imprinted with new personalities to fulfill the needs of wealthy clients. With only 2 seasons, it packed a lot into its short run and left us with plenty to unpack. Analese, that description says it's a sci-fi show. Do you agree with that? What kind of show is this? Because it is strange and it's definitely stand out, I think, especially from the time. When we think about the turn of the 2000s and we think sci-fi, the sci-fi TV to compare it to at that time would be the Star Trek, Stargate, Babylon 5, like these kinds of shows that are happening like in space. But this is different.
I think part of the reason the show was short-lived was because it didn't quite define itself completely in any of those categories. It is certainly sci-fi. The whole mind-altering, mind-wiping, we have this technology. There's the big evil corporation that we don't know what their deal is, but it also has, I'm going to talk about this later, but it really gets horror movie-esque. In the end of season 1, right? The character Alpha is a slasher murderer, and it's scary.
Yep.
Right? Like wonderfully acted by the guy on our team that dresses like a pirate. But
Alan Tudyk, man.
It turns into
the great
that,
Alan Tudyk.
And you have all of that combined. It's drama, and of course, it is a little bit ick. And I remember feeling ick about it and wanting to live in that uncomfortableness that it's a little bit, I don't know, Skinamax. It's a little bit.
Yeah. It's pretty cheesecakey. It is. I think it is good sci-fi because I think it's asking questions. I think it's asking questions of like, who would use this service? Is it ever okay to use this? Basically, the premise is like, you have these people, they do something wrong or they sign some kind of contract for money. They go into this organization and they lose 5 years of their life. During those 5 years, they spend a bunch of time hanging out in the dollhouse with their minds wiped. They're just basically, they're dolls, right? They just kind of walk around. They can eat, they can sleep, they can do menial craft time projects or whatever. But then when called upon, they sit in this chair and they get a new personality or a custom personality downloaded into their brain. And part of that is like the mad scientist kid. He can like build these personalities. It reminds me of G.I. Joe when they had to like Serpentor and they're like, we're going to take DNA from Hitler and Mussolini and Genghis Khan and put it all together to make the most evil person, right? They take all these traits and personalities of people to make someone who is like the sexiest, most perfect date in the world, but also an assassin. And those kinds of things, download them in, and then they like send them out into the world to do their thing, whatever the contract is for a couple days, and then they come back, they get wiped, and they're there. So there's always this question of, is there ever a right time to use this technology? Is this ever justified? And who are the people that are using it? And I like that too, because sometimes it's, just the creepiest creeps. Sometimes it's people with sob stories, like the Patton Oswalt episode always comes into my head of like, them trying to be like, really, hey, sad. This dude is using this service, and he's got this sob story, but it doesn't make it okay. Lots of things like that. So depending on like the client or the customers, like you're looking at questions that way too. So as far as sci-fi goes, and when we talk about asking interesting questions about humanity through the lens of like some kind of future tech that doesn't exist, yes, it's sci-fi.
Those sci-fi shows that you mentioned, to compare it to at the time, there's always the thing, right? There's the bad guys. In this case, it's the evil corporation that you hardly ever see, the Rossum group or whatever they're called. That's the overarching. There's a deeper backstory to this that I think part of the faults of the show is it just takes too long to get into. You have to get to the apocalypse to find out what their ultimate goal was, which it's not as clear early on, but there's you have that thing in the sci-fi. In the sci-fi world, there's the evil corporation, and you have that component here.
I think the pacing in season 1 was very good. And then in season 2, when it was like, hey, this is going to be it really turns and ramps up, and it suffers from that, because I think we were kind of taking that long road to, start to root for some of these people, or, can we root for some of these dolls? Are they starting to emerge with something different? Like, is this becoming a new species? Like, there were more questions to be asked then. And then it was like, okay, here's what happens. 10 years later, the world is totally doomed. But you also said horror. And I think beyond the horror elements that it has when the Alan Tudyk character is introduced, which is super cool. And one of those things, like, again, with that Joss Whedon type of storytelling, like, that wasn't a retcon. That was planned all along. We know because the doctor chick had the scars on her face and stuff. That was always going to be a big reveal. And I love that reveal, especially because it's Alan Tudyk shows up, and who everybody loves because he was just like the most lovable, Hawaiian shirt wearing dude in Firefly. And here's my new next favorite Joss Whedon show. And now he's a terrible, horrible, psychopathic killer. But beyond,
he nails it.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. He's a great actor. I love Alan Tudyk. But beyond that, the idea of losing your agency and losing your personality and not being able to have identity or voice and choice is a real scary, horrible thing for people. I think, especially women, is that an okay thing to say? I've only heard about it a lot from females who are like, that would be my greatest fear, would be to lose my agency and to not be able to speak or make choices.
Think about the Joss paradigm there, right? He's come from a show in which it's the most badass female in the history of the world in Buffy the Vampire Slayer to we're going to completely remove it and make you a prisoner of this entity. Eliza Dushku's character, Caroline or Echo, has a choice, but not really. And you learn over time why she got into that predicament, because she went directly in opposition of the big corporation. What listeners should know is that you watched highlights based off of recommendations. I watched all of season 1 and then just the final 2 episodes of season 2. And there's a couple of things that we talked about that I kind of want to mention real quick. The show did not do well season 1 and was already like, Fox had said, we bought the 13 episodes. That's it. That's all we're going to do. Fans of Eliza Dushku, of Buffy, of all the things, had already started to hammer Fox the way people did in the 90s and early 2000s by like just bombarding the studios with emails and phone calls and, you know, whatever to convince the network to do the show in at least another season. So some of that wonkiness is twofold. And I learned this. I'll have a story a little bit later about, because I watched this live. I'm like, oh, it's Faith. I'm going to totally watch this. And I watched it live. They didn't show the first, so that the finale is a 2-parter, right?
Yeah.
The first episode of that.
You could say it's a 4-parter if you really want to get into that.
Technically, but it's, is it Epitaph? What is it titled?
Epilogue or Epitaph.
It's like Epitaph 1, Epitaph 2, I think is what it's called, right? So Epitaph 1 was actually intended to be the series finale after season 1. But Fox was like, we've bought the 13 episodes. We're not showing this one. So instead, when they renewed it, they played it at the beginning of season 2. So the way it aired was all wonky. And in fact,
so they screwed it up the same way they screwed up Firefly.
They screwed up Firefly. Exactly. I bring all of this up because I think that lack of really defining it somewhere hurt it from the onset. And the fact that it started so slow hurt its chances to tell the full story on the onset. So we get the same thing that happened with Firefly, that Epitaph 1 and Epitaph 2, the series 2-part series finale, is that dark, gritty Serenity movie, because it is filmed like a movie.
I agree.
Joss got cheated in both directions on both of those shows, and how he handled it was just a little bit different. I think almost Joss gets his own category here, because it is sci-fi, it is horror, it is fantasy, it is a lot of it is drama, it is gross, because we didn't talk about consent as much in the early 2000s like we do now 15 years later, right?
Yeah, I guess that was the word I was looking for. Like, that loss of consent is just really icky for people, to the point where I think a lot of people would not watch this show, because the very like foundational premise of this is consent is out the window.
Right. And you're like consenting en masse.
Right.
5 years of consent and you're not going to remember what happens. It's really scary and it's really gross.
So we mentioned a couple names already, but this show has a pretty large cast for only lasting 2 seasons and being a pretty self-contained little thing.
It has a very big cast and a lot of
cameos.
There we go.
From like all over, like different TV shows and movies. Anybody probably connected with Eliza Dushku or Joss Whedon got pulled in to be some creep in the show.
Some of Joss's favorites are there, like Felicia Day. And
I love that Felicia Day was in this. In fact, I really like, what's his name? Movie guy. Oh, why do I do this to myself? Schneider. You know, the guy. John Schneider? No.
John Schneider.
That's Bo Duke.
Bo Duke.
Jack Schneider?
What character?
The Schneider Cut.
What character?
Dennis Schneider?
What character in Dollhouse?
No. I'm comparing how Joss Whedon has his troupe, like TROOPE of actors, to the dude who did like the Batman movies and Inception and all those.
Now I'm blanking. I know who you're talking about.
Release the Schneider Cut. His name is Schneider, but I don't know his first name. Guadalupe Schneider.
I'll go with Adam Sandler. Also has his troupe of favorites.
That's a great comparison, Analese. I'm glad that you had that.
But I will also say, and I think, I don't know if you got this same impression because you watched specific episodes versus episode to episode. But I definitely, in the slow start of the first few episodes, I'm like, oh, look at this guy. He's like Nathan Fillion looks just like him, acts like him, talks like him. That's Ballard. That's the dude that plays the guy who's hunting down the dollhouse.
Well, so those of us who know that Tom Pinnicket was hot off being like an awesome lead character in Battlestar Galactica. So Battlestar Galactica ended in 2009 and he jumped right into this show. I feel like that was a get because that was such a successful thing. People were like, oh, that dude's now in a new show. Let's go watch it. Well, and there were a bunch of folks like that too.
There's a bunch of people like that on this show. But what I'm getting at is I know in our notes, I put their Temu versions of Buffy Angel characters, Firefly characters. What I don't mean that as an insult, just that I mean that more. Joss Whedon definitely has his archetypes, and this looked very specifically casted to people he probably wished he could have in the show that would be his troupe in the show, but couldn't because they were contracted with other shows at the time.
Maybe I feel like he got some real good talent in this. It's TV talent. It's TV talent for sure. But his troupe is great. Like you mentioned, Felicia Day is absolutely awesome. We had so many of them. Summer Glau from Firefly. Eliza Dushku, of course. Oh, Alan Tudyk, the great Alan Tudyk from Firefly comes in, and apparently he wasn't too big to come in and be an awesome character in this one yet. And now that dude is just in absolutely everything. One of the other female leads, again, who has a name, Dyken Lockman, the Australian woman.
Is that Sierra?
Yes.
Yeah.
She is in everything.
She really
after
is.
This. I was like, oh, I wonder, like, what these people were doing. And I was poking around on IMDb, NCIS, Hawaii Five-0, Torchwood, The Guild, The League, CSI, Supergirl, Altered Carbon, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Jurassic World, Planet of the Apes. Like, she exploded. That girl works.
Yeah, and she's definitely typecast a lot after this. Look at the area of all those shows where she's just playing this badass woman.
Yeah,
like
totally. She's got it.
And there's another one. She plays Ivy in later episodes of the first season, and I can't remember if she's in the second season, but she's the second Doctor with Topher. She's in a ton of stuff too.
Right. Is she really? That's right, because she's kind of a secondary character.
But if you look at her, I'm gonna actually pull it up because
I'm not really recognizing anything here. Like I see the CSIs and I see the Equalizers and her name is Lisa with a Z Lapira, Lapira.
I know her. She was in 21.
Oh, she was in Dexter. That's why you know her.
I forgot she was in Dexter. There's a movie called 21, which was based off of the book, which would be before this series, but like a year before. That's about the kid from MIT who figured out how to rig blackjack. So she was in that movie that was super popular. She was in Monk, only one episode, but if you just scroll down and up her list. Well,
that's the thing. It's like, it's hugely long. And there's a lot of TV shows where it's like 2 episodes, 1 episode, 4 episodes. Like, again, that is a working actor.
I can't help but think that Fox helped with this. The Fox star power helped with this, but there's definitely archetypes that Joss Whedon uses that were very prominent in the first couple of episodes and then moved away from it.
Yes,
as the series
they're very
evolved.
very, very thin, very pretty white people is the archetype for this show. It's no doubt about it.
I really like the dude that plays Victor. He also, at this point, hadn't been in a lot of stuff, was in a ton of stuff after.
Okay, so fun fact about Victor. There are 2 actors in The Avengers from the Joss troupe verse that he's stuck in there. One of them is Ashley Johnson, who we all know from Critical Role. Right? She's the Critical Role. Ashley Johnson is a waitress in like a scene in the Avengers that Joss put her in there. She's also in this show. She was the Alan Tudyk arc where he kidnaps a woman to erase her memory and put Caroline in.
Oh, yeah, that is her.
And then, like, she gets shot in the throat. It's terrifying. That's Ashley Johnson.
That is her.
She's also in Avengers in a thing. And that dude, Victor, Enver Yogaj, or whatever his name is also, like, has a super small role in Avengers. He's a cop. Remember when Captain America's like, we're going to go over there. And the guy's like, why should we listen to you? Or whatever. That's him. That's Victor.
Yes.
So he got wedged in there.
I'll also say the dude that plays Topher, the lovable nerd, he also stars in Cabin in the Woods that Joss
Right,
Whedon
which
wrote.
is
And I
Joss
think I
Whedon.
only went and saw that because I'm like, hey, look, it's Topher. I'm gonna go watch. Oh, it's Joss Whedon. Okay, I'll go see this movie. Only reason why I saw that movie was because I saw he was in it. And here's a tangent fun fact. As I prepared for this episode, and that came up and reminded me that's why I went and saw Cabin in the Woods. His character in Cabin in the Woods is supposed to be the nerdy, geeky sidekick guy. And there's a scene where they all jump into the lake by the cabin. All the young folks are having a good time jumping in the lake. They purposely have him in baggy clothing and not jumping in the lake because he was so ripped that it was opposite. He was more ripped than anyone else on the set, and they couldn't have him physically look better.
I mean, if all your best friends are people who could walk around in pajamas in the dollhouse, you got to be working out. Like, that's just what you do. You just work out for 10 hours a day.
Well, apparently that's what he did because he was so ripped they couldn't have him jump into the lake or have him wear tighter fitting clothing because he was physically in better shape than the guys who were supposed to be the hunks of that movie.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, star-studded cast for sure.
And then Harry Lennox as well is an award-winning actor. I didn't recognize him from anything that that I watch because he doesn't do a lot of other like sci-fi campy fun things. But if you look at his IMDb, his list of awards is off the hook. Like, especially from places like the National Film Awards, the NAACP Awards, the Black Reel Awards, and those kinds of things. Like, he's in a ton of stuff that's just more artsy and highbrow than what I usually watch. But that dude brought credit as well.
Yeah, and he does a good job of being, I think, as the audience, our eyes and ears. He has a job to do. He's agreed to do it. He doesn't sit comfortably in the moral ambiguity of it. He cares for Echo in a way that the handlers are not supposed to. Holds on to humanity a little bit more than everyone else that works there.
And that is
I think
why
he's like our eyes and ears.
When the turn happens, it's so Joss Whedon-y because just like in Angel, where the lovable Irish dude gets shot, when it turns out that Boyd was the founder all along, you're like,
right.
What did you do? This was the only person I could like, and he's the worst? What? And then we already talked a lot about Eliza Dushku, but just this whole show sits on her shoulders.
Yes. And you know what's really funny? I think she shines in this role. Her ability to embody all of these different types of people and then go to completely blank slate is so powerful. But I read a lot of like reviews and thoughts about the show that are still living on the internet from 2009, 2010. A lot of people like, oh, she was outclassed by all these better actors and it's her fault that the show, like the comments are really gnarly and I don't agree with them. Like I would not be surprised if we found somewhere in the deep web that Joss created this show for her because of her ability to, I mean,
and in season 2, she was a producer of most of it, right?
And towards the end of season 1 too.
Okay, yeah, I think this is definitely an Eliza Dushku vehicle. I think people who have those bad comments are jealous haters because she is like
internet trolls.
I think they're just jealous people because Eliza Dushku she's just perfect. She's a perfect like for the Dollhouse. She's gorgeous. And she's one of those like very rare people that can still be very pretty, even though they're like Hollywood skinny 90 pounds. She looks great in all of the costumes that they put her in and stuff. And like, there's definitely this very, male gaze oriented chapter of this show. Sure. Like you can't get around it, but she's absolutely gorgeous. She's a great actor. She's producing the show. She's kicking ass. Like when it goes between her and like the stunt person, it's pretty seamless. Like it's not, I remember sometimes in like Buffy, you'd be like, well, that's a completely different person. Yeah. Like, it's a completely different person, but not so much. But there was a lot of hair flipping during a lot of the stunts so that you don't see the face, but just absolutely incredible. And to hear that she kind of got ground up and spit out by the Hollywood machine and now has gone on to something else and is, making the world a better place for her and other people in a completely different way is incredible.
Did you, in your short watch, see the one that was adventuring with the dude and they were in the woods and he took a river rafting and then hiking and then they camped and then he hunted her?
Oh, that's a good one. I can't believe it wasn't on the list.
Good. It is so good. And Eliza Dushku in it is just phenomenal. It's
I
so
did
good.
watch the whole show 15 years ago, but in
Yeah.
this latest one, no, I missed that one. But see, those are the kind of,
Yes.
that's the kind of turn and the stuff that like makes this show special, right? Those
Right.
uncomfortable, the rug being pulled out of you, right? Like there's a lot of that throughout the show. It's like, well, you think one thing, but it turns out it was actually this, and it's even worse than you thought, kind of thing.
Yeah, and we're kind of talking about what makes the show special, right? Like we're talking about Eliza Dushku as the center point, but also this incredible cast that's built around her, the moral ambiguity, the struggle to understand the longer term arch, which Joss is very good at, but this is jumbled for me. And I think what makes this show special is that his unique version of storytelling gets better and more grounded halfway through the first season to the end of the first season, and then really just doubles down in the second season when he knows he has a finite amount of time to tell the rest of the story. But that first half of the season is really slow. And I think
it's the Patton Oswalt episode. I feel like that's where it turns.
It's a turning point.
Yes. And hits its sweet spot.
Yes. Because not long after that is the episode where they have the spy. And it's the classic Joss storytelling that you see bits and pieces of the story. And then it goes back to this character's point of view and more of the story. And then you see the same scene from different angles based on that. Like that's shortly after that episode with Otten Paswell. That's also when the character Ballard has gotten confirmation more than just his suspicion that the dollhouse exists, and that really sets him on the path.
And then they really start messing with him.
Yes.
And then it's like, they know about him, and now they're putting this neighbor in, and then they're giving him secret messages that aren't true and all that kind of stuff like that. That
spy episode really turns it on its head when it's her right-hand man, her security guy, who is working to take down the dollhouse from the inside. He's the spy, and it really just kicks it up to 11 from that point on.
What a weird show.
I also want to, in the storytelling, and I don't know if it's Fox's fault. I don't know if this is a Joss thing, because clearly he had the amount of time in Buffy. He had the amount of time in Angel to know where that story was going and take us there. Even with Goop episodes in between, he had the time to take us there and develop the characters and develop the arcs and really get to that like ending. That was there all along. We don't get that with Firefly. We don't get that with Dollhouse. I don't know if it's Fox's fault or if it's Joss's fault, but the storytelling jumps and the way it's done is very similar to Firefly. The pacing of it, where it's slow at first, and then all of a sudden we've got to tell the story in a hurry, and then we have to do this cinematic ending because I don't have the time to develop the characters and do the arcs.
I mean, it's a timing thing, right? If Joss Whedon was at this height and still okay in the age of streaming that we have now, this might be very different. Where with network television, and especially them trying to break out of, like, it's very clear that Fox had not broken out of the old ways of doing television, where it didn't matter what order you showed things in, and it didn't matter if episodes were skipped, because they weren't as serial as they were in the 2000s, like the end of the 90s and the 2000s. Everything started to be serial and having these like underlying C plots that would go all season long, and the networks being like a big slow behemoth couldn't or didn't be nimble. They didn't adjust to that and realize that it was important that these things get shown in order and that they get shown on time, because they're building a following, which is what's going to help you in the long run for your advertisers and your longevity and all this kind of stuff. Like, they didn't get it. They were still thinking like, oh, whatever, it's an episode of MacGyver. It doesn't there's no whatever. It doesn't matter.
And it's so weird because, maybe Fox fumbles that in 2000 for Firefly. They fumbled it hard. But this is 9 years later. Buffy is over. Angel is almost over. This whole longevity arc exists and it's very popular. And Fox still fumbled it for Dollhouse. They still messed up and created this awkward storyline. And it's unfortunate because I don't think this show gets made now. I think there's too much moral ambiguity and too much about consent and too much. If it got made.
Well, maybe. I mean, we see like you have like Black Mirror and you have shows like Severance on Apple TV, which is very much like a mind wipey. Okay, I'm a different person, where in one place and I'm another person here, but I'm doing actions that are contrary to the other in these two different lives that I'm leaving and stuff. Like, I think there's still a place on streaming for a show like this. And I think it's probably better. Like, I think it's a better show on streaming. Like, there's so many moments in this show. Eliza Dushku in a sexy outfit saying a one-liner that you know was just shot so they could put it on the little like 15-second commercial spot during the football game on Fox to try to get people to like, there's just so many like cheesy old TV things in it that I think maybe it could still be made today, but it would be in a different place.
What do you mean by different place?
Like, it would be on a streaming service and it would be for TV people who really like these kind of anti-hero, dark horror sci-fi things. I think it's way more horror if you do it that way. It's probably much more scarier and suspenseful if you put it on a streaming service, and it would probably be something that I wouldn't watch. But I think it could still be done, and I think it would get a buzz.
It would make sense on a streaming service because they get away with a lot more, right? They get away with the nudity and the more ambiguity a lot more than a network television show would.
And the pacing could be something that's not. Any show that I think is trying to struggle with uncomfortable themes like this show does is going to suffer from 7.5 minutes and then a cliffhanger for a commercial break at 7.5 minutes. And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that formula is out of date when you compare it to the shows we watch these days.
That's very true. Oh, also hot tip, because I know you were saying when we planned this season, Dollhouse was on Hulu and we're like, okay, great. We'll do Dollhouse. It's on Hulu. No problem. And now it's not. Ugh. Now you have to go through the CW, and you had texted me like, I can't believe I'm watching commercials for this podcast.
I was wondering if you had the DVDs.
I had the season 1 DVD. I couldn't find it, which is one of the reasons why I started so late. I know I have it. Actually, when we were just going through the garage a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, oh, look, it's Dollhouse. I got to remember where this is at. So I should have just grabbed it and put it somewhere at that time, but I didn't. So I couldn't find it. But that being said, just hot tip, if you watch it on your browser on the CW page, no commercials.
Oh, I was watching on my iPad as I was like walking around the house and like, you know,
on the
doing
app,
stuff.
Right? Yeah.
On the app.
You could have went to your browser.
So annoying. I saw that stinking like Walmart Christmas commercial 1,000 times, Analese. It's so bad.
It was the same 3 commercials over and over.
Yes,
for sure.
It was the Walmart Christmas commercial. It was a T-Mobile commercial.
Did you get T-Mobile where they're all sitting on the couches and the like,
what gotta is that? Is that real?
We're of the it's making fun of reality shows right now, because that's what all the reality shows do is they do this like tell all at the end. It's the end of our awful reality show season. We're all sitting on couches and talking crap about each other. They replicated that. It's not a real show. But I will tell you, like, we are of the age that I make sure that I am never going to use T-Mobile, because you wasted at least combined an hour of my life with
watching that stupid commercial that didn't make any sense. And also, like, was it really old? Because they were advertising the iPhone 12.
I think like, because...
Is that just like the free phone now? Or is this a commercial from like 3 years ago?
No, because it had the Apple Watch SE, which is the newer but cheaper version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's just their free one right now, right? But look, anyways, that was your hot tip. Do you have a favorite character in this show?
I was thinking about this because by the end, everyone is corrupted. By the end, you find out that everyone was bad. Even like the big hero guy, Paul. By the end of the show, like, he's got a bunch of multiple personalities and stuff. Like, he opted in. He was supposed to be fighting it, and he's like, oh, you know what? This sounds like I could be like a better person than who I am. Go ahead, download me. Like,
did he do that, or because when they get to the end and the apocalypse has happened, they figured out how to do it remotely, and people don't have a choice? I don't think he chose, did he?
I think so.
I don't quite remember that part of it because I didn't see all of season 2. But the whole thing about Epitaph 1 and 2 is that they've created this apocalypse in 2019 and 2020 where the Rossum Corporation could remotely wipe people if you're standing next to something that's
they like weaponized it into like a little gun, and then they started putting them around the city and like all this kind of stuff. So like he's not great, and then there's a lot of weirdness as far as Melly. When he brings Melly back, he like gives her the personality of like the neighbor that's in love with him. So like he's terrible.
I think he was terrible even before that, right? He was fixated on Caroline. He was fired from his job at the FBI.
That's true.
I don't think he's a redeemable character to begin with just because he's trying to tear down the dollhouse. He's obsessed.
He's the only person that we see in the show from the beginning who is like, this place is wrong and we need to shut it down. And even like the episodes where they do like people talk about like the rumor in LA that there's a dollhouse and they like do these like man on the street
the man on the
interviews
street
and
interviews,
stuff. And people are like, I think it's great. I'd do it. Blah, blah, blah. And he's like the only one who's like very firm on like, this is morally wrong and we need to take it down. But then he just flips on that so quick. So
Yes.
all of them do just, I think you have the word in here, irredeemable. Everyone here is an anti-hero or sort of a thing, which I don't usually like that in fiction. So my favorite character, I'm going to go with the only person who started the show nice and ended the show nice, and that is Ashley Johnson as that person for 2 episodes.
If I had to choose a favorite character, just for the sheer fact that I was creeped out and frightened, Alpha is this,
Alan Tudyk, baby.
Amazing. But I'm the horror fan between the two of us, so it makes sense that I would really dig those last couple episodes of the first season. And I'm going to tell you, I want to get into the story real quick. I loved this show. I remember loving it. I remember it was weekly scheduled watching. I remember the couch in the living room. Every episode that we watch, that's another Fox thing. They put it on Friday nights. They doomed it from the start.
Right.
What I remember is I got LASIK surgery the day of what was aired as the season 1 finale. But I wanted to watch this show so bad that I had the like things taped over my eyes because, you know, you can't open your eyes for a bunch of time after.
Right.
And I remember listening, like laying on the couch and listening to the series finale and then pausing it every scene for my ex-wife to be like, okay, this is what just happened. Faith went and did, like, we used fake names because whatever, too many names in the show.
Right.
Faith just did this and that, and this is what happened. I'm like, okay, play it again. And like, it took me 3 hours to get through the series finale, but I loved this so much. Watching it now, I didn't love it as much. I thought the opening was really slow. It made much more sense to me with the weekly and the time in between versus streaming it back to back to back. Because those first few episodes, like I'm watching like a Cinemax version of Quantum Leap, only it's by choice instead of like, what even is this? And then it starts to turn. And then you get to the end of that first season and Alpha is so scary and it's slasher scary good. And it's written so well. If I chose a favorite character, it would be Alpha. And it's because of how I connect to the show. And it's not because Alpha's a good character. Alpha's a great character, but is so bad and so evil. And the idea that his multiple personalities get mixed with his actual personality of being like a murderer.
Such a good job. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's really
that he
good.
Gets accidentally imprinted with 48 different people and how he moves through those people when he kidnaps Echo. And like, it's so good. Those last couple episodes of the first season.
Totally agree. It was appointment watching for us as well. And we got into it literally like the exact way the marketing wanted us to, right? We saw the commercials and was like, hey, this show has that super hot babe from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and that cool dude from Battlestar Galactica in it. You want to watch this, right? And we're like, yes, we do. And so it was also appointment viewing for us on those Friday nights. I mean, we had built up a few years of that tradition. It was when we were working together at the beginning of the 2000s in that high school in Oxnard. And like, we would go over, Maria and I and the drum guy, Paul, would go to our house on Fridays. And I had TiVo'd Battlestar Galactica and like Stargate, you know, whatever Friday shows were. And we would have this like Sci-Fi Fridays, we called it. We had Sci-Fi Fridays for years. And this just, as soon as one ended, this picked up. And this was one of our Sci-Fi Friday shows that we watched every week.
Can I tangent? You know what I was just reminded of? USC recently, as the date of our recording, USC has just played Notre Dame. And they always talk about the Bush push from like 2001. It's when Reggie Bush pushed Matt Leinart into the end zone to beat Notre Dame when SC was actually good. I watched that at your house on a Friday because I always came late, right? Because you guys came through halftime. And then would leave after halftime. And I, obviously, I'm the director. I stayed till the end of the game. And I came by after, and there was a bunch of people over. I don't know why, but the game had ended and you had TiVo'd it for me. And every one of you had watched the end of that game. And it was super intense and flashed my memory of watching the end of that game at your place, like pacing behind your couch. When
it might have been earlier than a football game though, right? Because those games are on like during the holidays, right? Like kind of Thanksgiving to New Year's.
It was around Thanksgiving. And maybe it wasn't a Friday. Maybe it was a Saturday competition that I came after.
That could be. Yeah. You had to like wait for the last kids to go home. But meanwhile, we were
make sure everything was locked up, and then I made it to your place. So it might not have been a Friday, it might have been a Saturday, but just that memory was triggered so hard. And then watching this and remembering the Friday nights. Now, granted, I had moved to Vegas by the time this started, but can see how the Friday night schedule still
Yeah.
continued after that.
Man, what a magic time that was for us to be like in our 20s and working and having apartments and no kids and sci-fi Fridays and man.
Winning championships and gold medals. It's good times. Good
Now
times.
look at us, just a bunch of tired people on a podcast.
We get to talk about those times. Listen, kids.
What do you not like about this show? What's not good about Dollhouse?
I mean, I kind of mentioned it. It worked at the time when you had a week in between, and I wasn't the type to go to like Reddit or blog posts to like get in conversations about it with people.
It's really the pacing.
It's too all over the place. And when it gets good, it's good. But man, sometimes it's like a slog, and it shouldn't be a slog when a show's only 26 episodes bit long, right? But I think just the now version of me is so uncomfortable with the consent thing.
Yeah.
Right? The only thing that I kept thinking in the back of my head is it doesn't matter if I've signed a contract to tell me that I am potentially going to sleep with someone different every night for 5 years that I have no control of and I'll have no memory of is so ooky to me right now. 20-something-year-old me, almost 30-year-old me had less issues with that more ambiguity that it's really hard to stomach now. As much as I love watching Eliza Dushku do her thing, as much as there's so many great actors and it is a good storyline, I can't sit with that, which is why I still say I don't know that the show gets made now, because that by itself, they'd have to move away from the sex stuff in order to make it fly, or just not show it in the same format that we see it now, right? When they go on their adventures, we see some of the stuff and it's implied, but not in our faces.
It's really, there's such a strong element, and gets into like what I don't like about it anymore is there's such a strong element of just parading people around in skimpy clothes. Sure. That it's just, especially knowing, at one point it was like when we saw it the first time, we were younger and we didn't know what we know now. And to know now about Joss Whedon's problematic relationships with people in his movies, when we have like the whole Me Too movement has happened since then, and when we have this show that's basically like, hey, we're going to find the sexiest people we can and put them in the sexiest costumes we can, so that the commercials will make people go like, oh, I got to watch that show. Like, it just has that feeling of it. It's real cheesecakey, and I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with sexy, spicy TV shows or movies or books or whatever. It's just, I think we know too much about Hollywood during this time that it's hard to separate it and go like, oh, geez, I wonder what the set was like that day, kind of thing.
Right. I'll also say if there's anything to hinge on to for it is that if it got remade today, you really focus it on the science, right? Topher's character is really interesting in how he explains the science of it, but we don't get much of that because it is all about the partial nudity all the time, right? It's about all those other pieces of it. That's real interesting. I like brain research, and I've done some of it on my own about how learning music develops your brain and neuroplasticity and mindfulness and all that stuff. This would be really interesting as a sci-fi show that really focuses on the science. Would something like this even be possible? Can we make zombies out of people and then put their personalities back in? What happens when the brains fight back, which is really what this story is about. Echo and Alpha are similar in that their brains are fighting back and giving them memories that should be locked up or taken away from them, right? So
I think we know more too now about personhood, and it's not like, well, something not a critique of the show. This is just something to think about along those lines. Is like, we're not just our brains. Our whole bodies work in a system. So if you're talking about the idea of like, oh, you give the consent to turn your brain off, and so like it's not you, it's like, no, it is. Like, everything is important. Like, your whole body is symbiotic, from like your gut biome to your amygdala to the way your eyes work. It's all you. It's not, oh, there's like your heart and there's your brain, and we're a complete system.
Okay, so we talked about what we like, what we don't like, favorite characters, but what about the impact of this show?
I don't know. I don't see this coming up a lot in the different conventions and kind of that zeitgeist of nerdy culture. Right. I just don't see Dollhouse being mentioned. The actors I do all the time. Alan Tudyk's at every convention ever, right? You still will see, people like Amy Acker and Summer Glau and stuff like, they're still very active in those nerd communities, but for the other things that they've done. It's for the Firefly. It's for the, whatever. And so I think that's because of what this show was. Like, if we look at the other Joss Whedon stuff, I'm a fan of Buffy. There's Buffy fans. It's about a girl who slays vampires. it's fun and it's cool. Firefly. I love Firefly. It's space cowboys. Like, it's fun and it's cool. I love Dollhouse. It's the one about blank slate sex dolls who have their mind and consent erased and then go on adventures. Like, that makes you weird. You can't proclaim that that's your favorite thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think also in that Whedon world, when people mention Buffy or Angel, it's like, oh yeah, I watched Dollhouse too. And then that's it. Right.
Yeah.
It's there. We acknowledge it exists. It's a little bit ooky now, knowing that Joss's sets were pretty misogynist and uncomfortable for women. But
it could be because Eliza Dushku is out of that Hollywood business as well.
Maybe.
Right. Because like we had said earlier, like she carried this show a lot. And so for her to be like, ooh, I don't like it. It caused a lot of problems. And now I'm going through illicit drug psychological evaluations because of my time at home. People were like, oh, yeah, maybe we don't like that show. Okay.
Well, and you know what? In her trajectory, this is not a show that's brought up as problematic for her. She started
I
this
wouldn't
show
imagine so. It seemed like she was having a lot of fun. And the fact that she produced so many episodes and was credited as a writer on many episodes makes me believe that like this was just fine.
Maybe a cult following, but not
maybe
a popular cult following. People know it. People talk about it. Like, it was intriguing to us to choose it this season as our series focus because of exactly this.
I think so. And if there are listeners out there who go to more conventions and fan fests and things than we do, and they see like, oh no, Dollhouse has a presence, and like that's how I met,
so-and-so.
Fran Kranz is because I went to a Dollhouse thing. Like, maybe so. Like, let us know.
Yeah.
But I just don't know. Final thoughts.
For someone who is a fan of Buffy, acknowledging problematic versions of Joss, the way he tells stories is so powerful and impactful. There's something to be said about the way he writes, and there's something to be said about how his stories unravel. It's kind of the M. Night Shyamalan effect, only just not as big, which makes it even more powerful. You don't know who Alpha is, only that he did bad things throughout the whole first season, and then you meet him and it's crazy. Or the reveal, even small reveals throughout the series, like when you find out Victor is a doll, because he's that like super Russian dude that interacts with Ballard for a long time.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah.
It's a reveal that he's a doll. Right. And it's a reveal that Nellie, the neighbor, Mellie, is a doll when she's being attacked and Adele gives her commands over the answering machine. These reveals throughout really give you this unstable ground. Nothing is safe. And there's very few people who can write like that. So,
and then especially at the end too, right? I mean, there's a butcher's bill at the end of this show.
Yes.
Summer Glau gets her brains blown out and Paul Ballard. Topher makes the ultimate sacrifice.
Yes, he does.
and Paul gets just like kind of unceremoniously just like shot by a zombie in the middle of the finale. Like, there's no question, a lot like Firefly in the Firefly movie when they just start taking people out. Like, hey, I want you guys to know this is the end and we're not coming back.
Yep. Many people make the ultimate sacrifice in one way or another. But for me, final thoughts is I have fond memories of watching this show at the time. It made me an even bigger fan of Eliza Dushku, especially knowing what she's unraveling about her past to be so good in this show and take such an ownership of it. Makes me like her even more. I don't know if it's one that I would rewatch. And in fact, I thought once I find that DVD set, I am probably going to just put it in the Goodwill pile. I don't know that it's one that I can sit comfortably and watch anymore.
So that's kind of when we do our final thoughts, it's like is it a skip, borrow, or buy, right? If we were doing our comic books, but
sure.
Who should watch this show? Should anyone watch this show? Would you recommend it to anyone?
I would recommend it to anyone that is coming to the Joss Whedonverse late, because there is some phenomenal storytelling in season 1. And I would say stomach up for season 2 if you can get past season 1, but definitely get to the traditional end of season 1, which is the episode with Alpha and them trying to save Echo from Alpha. I think it's a watch if you've come to the Whedonverse late, if you like Buffy, if you like Eliza Dushku. I think, the guy on our team that dresses like a pirate is phenomenal in this. And is worth watching, even just the arc with him to see his phenomenal work at the end of the first season. But to me, it's not a must watch.
Right.
We have some friends our age that came to Buffy late. Watch Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. Watch Firefly. Watch Dollhouse. Watch the Avengers and really get into Joss's storytelling.
I really do like the show. I know I probably talked a lot of crap about it, but mostly that's just because of the time that it was made. I think it is good science fiction. I think it asks uncomfortable questions. I think it is unique because, I mean, you could look at Firefly and say, hey, these guys are a bunch of smugglers. They're a bunch of criminals. That's moral ambiguity, but not really. They're always heroic. They're always doing the right thing, at least for each other. They stick up for their team. Like, it's not like this. It's not like these terrible people in this terrible situation. Like, there's no reason for it. It's not redeemable. But I think it's important to look at those questions. I think some of the themes, like consent, like the power dynamics at play, like corporate control, are still strong themes 15 years later. And I think there's storytelling there. And I agree, like, if you love this troupe of actors, like if you watched Firefly and were like, man, I wish I could see more of those people, you can. It's called Dollhouse, and
fake Nathan Fillion.
Except Nathan Fillion. Instead, you
no,
got
it's fake Nathan Fillion.
That's really the only people I would watch it. If you're like a nerd and you're like, oh man, I remember hearing about like how nerds love Firefly, and I've never seen it, and you watch it and you're like, oh my god, this was great. I love it. Did these guys do anything else? It'd be like, yeah, they sure did. It's called Dollhouse, and go check it out. But really, that's the only reason. Like, this is not a rush right out in a buying frenzy and like, oh my gosh, it's even better than you remember. It's just not.
I'll tell you what, if you have a friend or a nerd that loves feeling uncomfortable and questioning reality, this is a great show to tell them, because you have to sit in being uncomfortable. As we mentioned, there are no redeemable characters in the entire show. Even in the apocalyptic world of 2019 and 2020, none of those people are redeemable. They're all survival jerks, right? They're hardened and they're tough, and they have to survive not being automatically mind wiped. And there's just, even Felicia Day's character is not redeemable. None of them are redeemable in this entire series. So if you are someone or know someone who wants to sit in that discomfort, this is a great show to tell them, because it's told in a very unique way. And that's Dollhouse.
We did it, fam. The only people that are ever going to watch this show are like super fans of the Nerd Best Friends podcast. They'll be like, well, these guys watched it, I should go watch it too.
And then they're going to stop being super fans of the Nerd Best Friends.
Oh no, I warned you.
JK. All right. What is the nerdiest thing you did this week?
Okay, so this is a fun one. There is a company called Snarling Badger Studios, and it is a couple...
That is a great name. I have to interrupt you. That is a great name.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So Snarling Badger Studios is a couple of YouTube miniature painter dudes. Every year they come out with a game, and they come out with a mini game. So it's always like the idea of it being miniature agnostics. They just sell books and they just sell rules. They're not a miniature making company. And so the idea is like, nerds like us have a ton of miniatures. What do you do with them if you've already kind of played that game, or you're tired of that game, or whatever? It's like, well, here's a game. This one's all about demons. So if you've got a bunch of like scary demon miniatures, pull them out. This game's for you. This game's all about space aliens and stuff. If you've got science fiction stuff, here's a game for you. They also do a mini game every year as well. And last year, the mini game was called Tanks for the Apocalypse. And it was like, it was an easy rule game. I think it's like players, like number for 1 to 20 players. And you like basically like, if you have a tank, if you own a tank, it could be a World War II tank, it could be a sci-fi tank, it could be whatever. If you have a tank miniature, you have one miniature, you put it on the table, you build up some stats for it, and you can have as many tanks as you have friends on the table. And you have this like battle royale style
just tanks
thing.
That's amazing.
This year, the mini game is the Great Goblin Hargle-Bargle, because how great is that? you've got goblins. If you are a D&D player, if you're a fantasy war game or whatever, you probably already have some goblins, or if not, goblins are really easy to get. They're ubiquitous. And so this game is all about like you and your friends put together a group of goblins. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter, they're not all kitted out and statted out to the nines. It's just like, just find 20 goblins and stick them in a pile. And this is a game for like 2 to 4 players. And you have this Hargle-Bargle. And the rules are pretty simple. It's like 4 phases. Like you move, you either fight or you shoot. Then you try to call more goblins to your side. So goblins that have died, you can bring back, because it's just the idea of this pouring mob of goblins. Sometimes your goblins can cast spells. Sometimes there's a mechanic in the game called shenanigans, where you can like set traps or like release pets. Like, what is that? And so it's super fun. It's rules light. And so what I did was I saw this game and I'm like, this is just too good. And I have a zillion goblins. So let's organize a goblin Hargle-Bargle. So went on the miniature chat, message group that we have. It was like, listen, everybody, sent the PDF of the rules. Like, let's have a goblin party. If you're a miniature painter, grab your goblins. Let's do this thing. And so we're at the beginning stages right now, but I know that our friend, listener Juliana, bought herself a big box of goblins. And I heard that you just ordered a big box of goblins.
Whoa. You don't spoil my nerdiest thing I did this week.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Yes, I did. And I'll tell you the story in a minute.
All right. And I've been putting stuff together. Of course, I already had 3 goblin like Hargle-Bargles ready to go, but of course I have to make another one because I'm me. And so like that means Maria's got one ready to go, Andrew's got one ready to go, and I'm gonna make a new one, and we're gonna have like ideally what I want to do is have this big California meetup, because we have a bunch of friends in different places in California. Have some big meetup and just do like a goblin battle royale all day. We can do it tournament style and eat, drink, and Hargle-Bargle. So I'm excited about that. That's my nerdiest thing this week.
Okay, I have to ask.
I'm sorry I stepped on yours. The
big
reveal.
I have a hold on. I have a question. In your football themed game that you just got, isn't there football goblins?
Absolutely, there is. You could get the football box and paint up football goblins in the scheme of your favorite football team. And that could be your Hargle-Bargle.
I biffed it. I totally forgot about that until right now. Anyways, the nerdiest thing I did this week. We joked earlier, Rob brought to our attention a number of episodes ago, maybe even last season, about his favorite website, OnlyFans. I mean,
nope.
Only Games. That was on purpose. Only Games, in which you can have your Dollhouse fantasy of minis, as many in the world that you would want to fulfill your collection nerd needs. You like how I'm spinning these themes, huh?
I feel like it's at my expense somehow.
It's at our expense. It's listener, if you are laughing and enjoying this part of the episode, that it is all worth it. Because what you can't see is how red Rob is turning right now. And it's phenomenal. And I love it. We can razz each other in only the way best friends are able to. Thinking about the Hargle-Bargle, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to find a goblin army, and then I have to wait for it to arrive, and then I have to prime it and slap chop and paint it. And when on earth are you even going to do this? Because I haven't painted minis. I haven't done anything since like July. And just, I don't know. Around Black Friday, I'm like, all right, it's sales day across the universe right now. Do you have a good goblin army that I might be able to get? And I had done a Google search and saw some, and I had seen the one you sent me, which is of pirate goblins, and it's only got 19. It's one short, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Worst case scenario, I just put something else in there, and when one of the duders get eliminated, I'll just switch it out. Like, I'll figure out a way to do it.
We'll have some randos. Don't even worry about it.
Because it's only one short. It's 20 instead of 21. But I made the nerdiest thing I did this week was make my very first purchase on Only Games, and that is a goblin army for the Great Hargle-Bargle. It's going to be great. That army, like when you said you're like, well, I'm looking for goblins, I was like, oh, thank goodness, because those goblins were in my shopping cart on Only Games. They're so cute. They're just amazing. I'm like, I got it. Like, these have to be in my life. But now that you're getting them, they will be in my life, and I can not They won't look as nice as if you painted them, but
You
now
never
I'm really
know.
bummed. I'm thinking about that football goblin army because man,
I just sent you a couple links. ¿Por qué no
Did you?
los dos?
Oh my gosh.
I'll tell you what, if you end up liking the football ones more, I'll buy those pirate ones off of you because I love them so much.
Both of them come, you have to glue them together, right? And that's the part.
Yeah.
Like, I still have the Scooby-Doo set that you bought me for my birthday because I don't have glue. I don't have the little tools to put these things together.
You know what? If they're resin prints, which I think those Scooby-Doo ones are too, there's a special glue I like. I'll send you a picture
Send me
of
a
it so
link,
you can
yeah,
order
because
it
at some point I'll get it. And like, that's why I kind of needed the timeline because I figured I wasn't going to be able to find an army of already put together minis. I'm going to have to put them together. I've never done that before. So that's now entering a whole realm of something I've not done. So
welcome to the hobby. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
need your X-Acto knife. You're gonna need your
ain't
little
nobody
file.
got time for this.
It's fun
Look,
and relaxing.
Final
It's
Girl
great.
Series 3 is coming in January. So
Okay.
whatever is done by January that's it. Because I'm just saying.
As long as you're painting,
I have until
you're getting stuff done, I'm happy.
Our bonus episode, I'll talk about the other nerdiest thing I did this week, which is
okay.
painting. So, Rob, this is our last episode of 2024. We have a bonus episode for our subscribers next week, and then we're off for a couple weeks for the holidays. So, nerds, listeners, may your holidays be full of joy and time with your loved ones. And Happy New Year from your nerd best friends. Since it's the new year, you know what that means. Or if you're new to our podcast, this is what it means. A renewal of our nerd goals and our list of 25 for 2025 coming up in January. Reflect, make your list, and join us in 2025.
I'm wincing and squishing up my face on that one. It's not going to go good for old Rob next episode.
It's going to be great. Remember our call to action. Hit that subscriber follow button on your device and spread the word with those sweet 5-star ratings. Connect with us on social media at Nerd Best Friends or send us an email at podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Let's grow our nerd family and keep the geeking fun going strong. Happy New Year, nerds. Happy holidays. Hopefully your friends and family listened to our gift giving guide and you got all the nerdy things for your little heart and wants and desires. And I can't wait to tell you about our 25 for 2025.
What a great holiday present. You're there, you're hanging out with your family and your extended family. What better gift than to steal their phone, go into their podcatcher and subscribe to the Nerd Best Friends podcast and then slip it right back on the table.
They will thank you forever.
Thank you for it.
Happy New Year, nerds. We'll see you in 2025.
Try not to talk about Dollhouse yet.
Yeah, don't talk about Dollhouse. Remember one about Dollhouse is you don't talk about Dollhouse
till the episode starts.
I'm
just dead.
Okay.
D-E-D-D dead.
Rip.